Okay, we are live on
We go high, we go high.
Welcome everyone to live interaction with Global Change Makers. Today we have a very special guest with us, Miss Nidhi Pundhir. She's the director of HCL Foundation, and she has won many accolades along her journey. She has been working in the space of sustainability and CSR for more than 2 decades, and has extensively worked on human rights, health education, life science, child protection and development with Plan International, headquartered in UK, Director Program Development with SOS Children, Health Administration, and MPhil from with Pilani.
I think we lost her.
I think we lost Harsha, is it? Hi.
Oh no, she's back again.
I'm here.
Right.
Okay. Now you're going to lose me.
Okay, Nidhi, I'd like to learn about your journey from Birla with Pilani to right now, director of HCL Foundation, which is one of the largest in terms of technology in India.
Right. Thanks, Harsha, and thank you for having me here and wishing all the viewers who are joining a very good morning, afternoon, evening, a very good day out there. So thank you so much for this kind invitation. And I would say that it's been quite an enriching journey, more than 22 years in development space, and I kind of chose hospital and health systems management back then, very early in life, I would say. That in those times, to be a public health management professional was not something which was quite a fancy idea for many, and it was quite an unconventional field, especially the part of the world I come from, India. It attracted me for two reasons, I would say. One, that it did have a lot of science in it. I had graduated in science, and I was like, if I were to put best use to the graduation degree in life sciences, this is the stream. And then it brought in the element of public health management as well as hospital management, where I saw that I'll be able to serve people, I'll be able to serve humanity, which was my natural interest right from childhood, coming from a family where I grew up amidst educationists, and I had a lot of influence of my father, who had been leading adult literacy missions and who came from education fraternities. So I was naturally inclined towards community development. And I think very young in life, that came as a very natural calling, and I'm so happy I chose that field. And post that, it's been a continuous journey. I did not choose the conventional hospital environment, um, to basically, something which did not attract was to be in a very profit making kind of a setup, though that's also something which is much needed. And now we see professionals managing hospitals very well, and that is also extremely, I would say, a very high unmet need across the world, and professionals are doing quite well. I was more attracted, in terms of the various kinds of poverty which is caused because of poor health. And that's where I really wanted to go further. And that brought me to the world of non government organizations, NGOs. And I started my journey with a very small NGO then, and then moved on. And then the child rights, especially the children's health issues, really affected and the root cause of completely non-systematic approach to especially reproductive health programs and the maternal health programs and so on, and continue to work on them through the organizations. I would say yes, I've spent most of my career time with Plan International, both at regional, national, and global, playing global roles. But then for last 5 years, I've been with HCL Foundation, which is, I would say, leading uh, player in the field of corporate social responsibility. HCL Foundation is the CSR arm of HCL Technologies, and as you rightly said, how do we bring the two together? I must say that yes, technology definitely is central to a lot of work that we do at Foundation. But having said that, we are quite rooted. We kind of work both with rural and urban communities through our flagship initiatives. And as we move further in the program today, I'll be happy to take you through in much detail what we do at HCL Foundation. It's extremely enriching, and I would say I'm fortunate to be able to come back to India and to be able to contribute in whichever way I can, especially in the current times. It's been an extremely rewarding experience. Thank you.
Wonderful. You have, as you mentioned rightly, you worked extensively in healthcare and child rights. During COVID 19, what are the pressing issues and how have you catered to the needs in your current role?
Right. So, obviously, COVID-19 made public health so obvious to the world. And, we as public health professionals, I would say, for the first time, there was discussion in the corridors that uh, the world needs this field more than ever, and we are, of course, the pandemic has had its impact, and we are all still struggling through it in various ways. But then I am kind of also thankful to so many scientists out there, public health management professionals, the clinical people, the diagnostics and so on, that we were able to come together as one world and have been able to very quickly move, on the treatment side as well as on the vaccination side. It's not it's a novel pandemic, as we all know, and we are still kind of studying, and it posed several challenges. In general, the regular development programs were hit quite badly. The general attention of the world moved from, let's say, environmental work, or the regular education work, or the skill development or livelihood work, to dealing with the pandemic. And the economy has been hit quite badly across the globe. People lost jobs, and many lost motivation or the zeal to do anything. And in this kind of a scenario, I would say HCL as a group stood together. So it was not only limited to HCL Foundation's response, it was also the larger 150,000 plus people at HCL coming together and responding in various ways, from the coordination of the data centers, coordination of the call centers, relief, strengthening the relief commissioners' offices, strengthening the healthcare system out there to be able to respond to the pandemic, provision of personal protective equipment, provision of high-end ventilators. Also, I would say we did take care of animals and wildlife, and we did not stop doing what we were doing earlier prior to the pandemic. I think the format is that I can take you through some slides what HCL Foundation has been doing at some stage, and then we can take you through exactly how the regular development work also continued during the pandemic. So that would actually give you a better idea in terms of the strategy and the framework under corporate social responsibility that we've been using. And just to kind of um, the tagline there, transforming lives and spreading smiles, is very special to us at HCL Foundation and the entire team. I must say that in the pandemic time, the larger spirit of being a humanitarian worker was so high across, and it really brought out, no matter what kind of profession one was in, uh, e- everybody just kind of came together. And obviously we as one team at HCL Foundation, as well as the larger HCL group, there was this whole willingness to not only help but also to act and to be a part of this very big response. And for that, I would say we've been kind of sowing the seeds of, as we call that, sowing the seeds of resilience. I mean, if we were not working on ground way before pandemic, it's almost 10 years that HCL Foundation is celebrating now. This year will be 10-year-old organization, and we've been working extremely closely with the communities, with government, with non-government organizations, with individuals of influence. And I would say all the resilience that we had been building all these years actually came into play when the pandemic struck. And therefore, this whole thing, and we had our communities actually come forward and respond. I think that was the most beautiful part of it. Let me take you through a few more slides there. So in terms of the vision that which we have consciously created for ourselves, is to be the source code for socio-economic and environmental impact. And that's obviously is derived from the HCL's core philosophy in terms of technology interventions also. But then we very much believe that all the work that we do in terms of socioeconomic and environmental work should also have a kind of defined source code, which can be then replicated and sustained. We pretty much believe in partnerships, and we pretty much believe in clean, green, and healthy communities as a part of our mission. And we very much believe that it's very important that HCLites remain engaged in everything that HCL Foundation does. The overall framework is well aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, and we've been contributing to each one of these goals quite systematically, taking a scientific approach as well as measuring each one of the, I would say, across these goals in a very systematic manner. Going ahead, I would want to also quickly draw your attention to the regular development work that HCL Foundation has been doing way before uh, the CSR law came in India. Many of these programs were already on ground. And in terms of the rural development programs, we have flagship initiatives such as HCL Samuday, which is a rural integrated development program in Hardoi district of Uttar Pradesh. We have HCL Grant, which is basically aimed at recognition of the fifth estate, as we call them, the non-government organizations. We are also strengthening, I would say, reaching out to very remote rural areas through this program across the country. Then we have very innovative urban initiatives which aim at addressing the urban poverty, and all forms of urban poverty is what we kind of address here. The program is known as HCL Uday, and then we have added, especially looking at the problem of waste management, solid waste management, an initiative called Clean Noida in Gautam Buddha Nagar district. Very special programs and initiatives. We have Power of One, where employees come together and they kind of donate not only funds but also their time and energy, and we clock like hundreds and thousands of volunteer engagement hours across HLF programs per year. Another very interesting initiative going on at HCL Foundation is the HCL Foundation Academy, where we kind of bring together all kinds of stakeholders, communities, frontline workers, to come together, to co-learn, to co-create, to co-implement. And it's a free of cost platform which is available at HCL Foundation. and very interesting courses running here. I would welcome all of you to watch out for courses. The current interesting courses are in collaboration with IIM Bangalore. We're also running something on corporate social responsibility, the practical implications of the law per se, and we work through the life cycle approach. I would say we start with early childhood care and development. We look at education, we look at environment, health, livelihood, water sanitation, and hygiene, and disaster risk reduction and response. I would say we are perhaps very few of those CSRs who work on DRR. And so far, in last, I would say, in last 6 years or so, we've been the first ones to respond to all the big disasters, that big and small disasters which have happened across the country. Values like, sense of urgency in breaking the cycle of poverty, as well as passion, leveraging uh, through various other kind of I would say investments which are happening, blending the wisdom of communities with scientific rigor, and partnerships, as well as convergence, as well as holding ourselves accountable to the highest standards of program implementation, as well as governance and credibility. These are certain values which guide us, and these are quite I would say, across the team and across the partners that we work, we're quite well immersed in these values. And that's another thing that kind of moves us at a pace at which we are. um, I don't know if we have a quick video, or maybe let's move ahead and I'll quickly show you, going ahead, if we have like the footprints across the country as of now. I mean, these are numbers, and I can leave you with this deck. I mean, this is like 1.8 million lives that we have been working with, and the environmental impact that we are making. But what is critical is that it's not just about these numbers written on the board. We very much can reach out to each one of our beneficiaries, and we are so involved and engaged that it's just not touch point activities. And
It's
that's the kind of, yeah. Yeah, Harsha.
what are the criteria to engage with your foundation? Like, how do you select your partner organizations?
So that's another thing that we've been able to, I would say, institutionalize quite well in the field of corporate social responsibility. There are regular requests for proposals which we come out with, and each one of these programs has their own frame of reference, or let's say the theory of change that we follow, and basis which obviously we would definitely look at shared values. We would definitely look at the values that I showed on first board. If we do share those values, definitely we look at those organizations to be partnering with. There is always a very stringent list which is published along with the RFPs that we do. There'll always be like, so there is this program called HCL grant, where we have like a extremely competitive format where organizations can apply, and there is a due diligence process, where we have like a third party governance partner also. But then we also have like, we always also search, and HCL grant is where we kind of, I would say, honor the model that the organization comes forward with. In fact, it's an award for their model. But there are other programs like HCL Uday, where we, or Clean Noida, or Samudai, or Harit, and so on, where we actually look for implementation partner, where the framework is very much in-house, and it's led in-house by HCL Foundation, by thematic leads. And that's the time where we, I would say that there is a body of thematic experts. There is a governance check, and so on. So I would say case by case, and I'm so happy to say that we have more than close to 200 partnerships today across the country. At this stage, maybe I can show you a quick video on the 10 years journey, and that would actually make it further clear. as to how things have moved, over these years. And obviously, we give a lot of credit to the most amazing partnerships that we have. So that was just a quick, journey into how 10 years have been and how the footprints just kept going up. And I would give, I think it's primarily due to various partnerships, as well as a whole lot of innovative work, incubation that happens at HCL Foundation, um, and the inspiration from the communities.
So among it's very impressive. So among all the projects that you all are running, which ones have you all collaborated with the government, and which could be scaled up in the format of company to company collaborations or with government collaborations?
No, I would say that that's another, I would say, a part of the code of conduct, or let's say the part of our source code that we have at HCL Foundation, that we pretty much start every initiative that we do only after consultation, as well as a dialogue with government. We don't believe in kind of duplicating the efforts or duplicating the investments, or running parallel systems, because we very clearly know, being social development people, that that would only weaken the state system. So I would say all the initiatives, be it Samuday, be it Uday, be it HCL Grant, or our Clean Noida or Harit initiative, there is a very sound MOU, and within the MOUs, there will, by MOUs, I mean the Memorandum of Understanding, with the right kind of stakeholder at the government level. And the moment we do that, we obviously share the responsibility. It's not that everything would be done by HCL Foundation. We kind of divide the role, and government being the key player there and having way more resources, they put forward what they can and we put forward what we can. And there have been initiatives where schemes like MNREGA, there's been a lot of unlocking of the government funds and resources. There are examples where we've been able to bring a whole lot of community land or common land under community governance. All the schools that we work with, or all the afforestation work that we are doing, or the pond rejuvenation work that we are doing, or the panchayats, which we are strengthening, or their planning and leadership skills. So I think it varies from, there is a whole range out there in terms of replicability of programs. I mean, if I were to pick up one or two, it wouldn't be fair, but that's something which is so integral and inherent to everything that we do, that sustainability and replicability, as well as convergence and leveraging, is a kind of a part of the DNA at Etzel Foundation on the entire work that we do.
Wonderful. We have Digital India movement which is going on. What are the prospective roles we can leverage for responsible business leadership by the IT industry in the changing times?
Well, I think that's a question more for the business leaders at HCL, so I'm not the right person to answer that. But I must say there's a whole lot of movement, be it artificial intelligence, or be it, HCL is leading everywhere, and that's only because the L1 leaders and the entire, not only leaders, but across the ecosystem, I think that whole leadership exists and that passion exists, and it's the world of technology, and it's a digital world altogether. So yeah, but I think that question is more for the business.
Okay. IICSR is a dedicated research, development, and training institution for responsible business leadership. What courses do you see that we should roll out for existing CSR and sustainability professionals and for the coming workforce?
I think a lot can be done. I mean, it's not something, it's obviously up to you where would you want to specialize. But I would say you can always divide it into clearly two big halves. One is the governance bit, which is the institutional building of the organizations, or of the individuals who would be implementing. So it's not easy. You can always say, oh, I have this kind of a budget, and I'm you know but to actually deploy the right kind of programs on ground, you do need a highly professional, trained and experienced workforce. And even if they do have the fundamental degree, I mean, they would need on the job training. So so one is the programmatic aspect, and the other is the governance, and that's how you should be looking at your larger, or anybody who's working in that field, larger, kind of, and then go from macro to meso to micro. Obviously there's a big need even to train the leadership, to be able to think out of the box, to be able to kind of take risks, to trust, to do something which perhaps, if they're working, let's say, in one district, um, they should be able to take the decision of scaling it up and generate resources, and for that they obviously need to build the second and the third line. The leader should be able to work with a range of people. I think that's also something, and be able to appreciate the kind of various skill set that their teams bring on board. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to happen in terms of leadership, motivational skills, delegation skills, budget management skills, resource generation skills. I mean, you can just do like 1 week to an hour, or any kind of capacity building. I mean, they wouldn't be able to give you too much of their time, but one would really need to look at high end courses for them. And then we need something for the middle managers and the frontline workers, such that they are also able to lead their missions and they feel empowered enough. Just think about an Anganwadi worker working in an ICDS center. I mean, she is the leader of that place, and she could be the front line for the ICDS system, but she is the leader of that place. So, how do you really build that leadership in each person? The other bit is, of course, the specialized programs. When we say public health, it's not something, it's one subject, but within public health you will have epidemiology, you will have demography, you will have health economics, and you'll have like whole lot of things which one really needs to understand. Same is for education. Now we have digi education in, and what is it that children need to learn, what is it that they are learning, how do you really make comprehensive assessment of actually, just not doing rote ratification, or just not sticking to one kind of syllabus. But I would say, as CSR, one really needs to play that role of getting the young mind up, and be able to contribute as a responsible citizen. Financial inclusion and savings is another area one really needs to be working in. So I would say, just sky is the limit. I mean, you can decide, but I must tell you that it is very important that when we design a course, the participants must be hungry for that knowledge. We should not offer anything where there is no demand per se, or where we've not been able to generate that demand. And they should also be able to go back and use that immediately. uh, People will come for degrees and certificates, but that's not what we need. I mean, what we need is hands-on passion to be able to contribute. And the other thing is, it takes time. So we should never go with a course which is just designed top down. It must have scope for co-creation and accept the participants own learning as well as their contributions, and then let the course evolve with the classroom, and have whole lot of practical exposure during anything that we do.
Thank you so much. On this note, may I request Dr. Hopkins to ask his questions?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Oh, okay. First of all, Nidhi, if I may address you as Nidhi.
Sure, Michael. Yeah.
Lovely to listen to such an articulate person speaking. I'm incredibly impressed. So many congratulations on just the clarity of your exposition. I think it's also a lesson for us all, on clarity and in terms of communication. And just one thing that you did mention about education and its use. And we're always very keen to talk about next steps. So after you've listened to us, or we've discussed aspects of whatever message we're trying to put across, we always focus on next steps. Now, I have two very quick questions, which probably take you several weeks to answer. But my first question is, I'm kind of interested in my first question on the impact of the foundation itself on HCL. So is there a business case? How does it impact on what the staff do and think about, or are you kind of completely independent? So that's my first question. And the second question is even more difficult, or perhaps even more easy, which is a huge issue. I seem to be discussing this almost every day, which is the link between digitalization and the dumbing down of evidence-based analysis. Let me repeat that. Digitalization and the dumbing down of evidence-based analysis. Now, you're working with a big company, which I don't know very much about, regrettably. I did have a quick look at your impressive website. How is HCL handling this whole movement, which is in a way is anti-technology because it's becoming too trivial. So I'd be very much interested in what your reflection is. Of course, if you're not allowed to say so because it's company policy, I quite understand that. I know there's some things you can't talk about. And then if Harsha allows me, I would like to proffer one try at communication with what I'm doing these days. But if Harsha allows me, which is the first two lines of my new song, which she might disallow me on that. But sorry, so my two questions again, Nidhi, which is the impact of the foundation's activities on HCL itself, and the second, the link between the digitalization and the dumbing down of evidence-based analysis. I guess HCL is aware of this, and what sort of things are there, the measures they're taking and so on. So kind of complex questions and far too long. Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Michael, for that. And I would say extremely pertinent and thoughtful questions. And you're right. I mean, one should get thinking about those. And I think when you ask the right questions, that also sets the direction. So thank you for that. And thank you for all the compliments in terms of clarity and communication. I would say, uh, it's an everyday process. It's not something you can read up, or you can kind of just go through a course, and there's a whole lot of energy, because there's a very professional team backing you, there's a very professional brand backing you, there is a whole lot of trust that the board shows in you, and the kind of central position that corporate social responsibility has taken in India, especially these days. Not that development work is something new, not that non-government organizations are new, not that granting is something new. We've been doing it for many years, but I must say that with the law coming in India, more and more corporates have come forward. Having said that, at HCL, it's CSR, or let's say giving back, has been a part of the DNA, and that runs from the founder himself, Mr. Shiv Nadar, who is one of the biggest philanthropists out there. And um, so as far as I have seen in HCL over past 5 years, and the employees that I have met, there is so much enthusiasm to do beyond what they are doing through technology. Obviously, the technological solutions and the technological know-how that they bring on board is already a kind of contribution to the communities and contribution to the nations and the world today. I mean, today we are able to talk because technology is backing us. But they want to do more. From I have seen people getting so passionate about food banks, about food drives, about plantations. But then, there has also been a shift from doing one offs to very systematic programs at HCL amongst volunteers. They are doing gendered orientation, they're doing self efficacy trainings, they are monitoring the programs, they are. So, the impact of the work that HCLF does has on HCL, I think it's like we are like one. I would say, I mean, though as an entity we could be independent, but HCL Foundation is very much the voice of the HCLites. I mean, we very much are in our the vision is not something today we see. You see us completely spread on all the SDGs, and that's also one reason that with 150,000 plus people, they have expectations that we do everything. We save water, we save planet, we save people, we do peace, we do prosperity. The whole spectrum there. Um, it's a point of research. I would say one can always do an organized, systematic survey and look at what employees are thinking. But at a perception level, I would answer that there is a very big goodwill, um, which um, which has been created through the foundation, and in many ways must be coming back uh, as a brand, image to the company. But that's not the primary motivation why we have CSR. The primary motivation Why we have CSR, corporate social responsibility, and a development framework at HCL is because we want to change, because we want to transform, because we really want to not only contribute but bring about a meaningful difference to the ground situation. If there is illiteracy, we want to educate. If there is a lack of digital education, we want to bring that to the table. If there is lack of access to healthcare services, a very high level of out of pocket expense and very high level of poverty, we really want to address that. And at a mission level, we are extremely geared towards solving these issues, and that's primary for us. I'm very optimistic that obviously comes back to the brand and must have an impact at HCL as a business also. And to your second question, I'm not kind of, I don't know whether I really need to answer, because obviously it's very obvious that the whole, the digital space is meant to uplift. It should never be seen otherwise, and it's obviously meant to kind of provide not only means to reach or to connect the world, or to have faster response, or to have faster healthcare, etc. But it is also kind of meant to collect evidence, and to meant to kind of for us to be able to research and innovate better. So those are not either or kind of statements, but one should continuously use the digi space and the technology to have better evidence, to have better base, to kind of measure impact in more meaningful ways, and to continuously work towards a bigger developmental agenda. I mean, we had MDGs at one stage. We are now working towards SDGs as a world. By 2030, we are supposed to be achieving that, and there'll always be a need to do more even after SDGs are accomplished. So I think it's a journey which will go on. But you're right. One can continuously reflect on both the questions. Thank you, Michael. And the song
And
is
thank you.
Harsha's. Only Harsha has to
Okay.
give that permission,
If I may,
not me.
if I may,
Yes,
this is
we
this is the first time I've done.
definitely
This is the first time I've done anything in public
to hear
like
you
this.
towards
So
the
you're seeing the experiment of the first thing I've ever done anything in public. Okay, okay. So it goes something like this. They go high, we go high. When they go low, we stay high.
Remember Miss
Cool,
Clinton. You see, I remember Miss Clinton. So yeah. So thank you for the wonderful song, Dr. Hawkins.
Terrific. Thank you.
Dr. Upadhyay, would you have a question too?
Nidhi, uh, we have been observing the HCL work during the pandemic, and the way you brought all the people together, especially the NGOs and the corporate. So this has been one stage where generally we used to talk about that two corporates cannot work together. I think that's a myth which has been broken by this pandemic, and you as a thought leader has been in front. My question to you is, what are the lessons we as other corporates can learn from you?
No, thanks, KK, for that question. I would say we are learning from many, and the learning is one thing which really needs to be a constant, continuous. Um, but what I can say about what pandemic did to the humanity as such was that it completely broke all the barriers and the walls, because it was one thing where everybody just came to a standstill and thought, how do we really get rid of it, in the first place. and people had been working in silos. Government was working, doing their job, and corporates theirs, and individuals on government. Believe you me, this year I don't know how many conferences we've had, how many Zoom calls and how many video calls, and I've walked into the offices of so many various kinds of stakeholders, where we just put our act together, and we said, okay, fine, you provide space, we do the call center, we provide space. There hasn't been something like a whole lot of discussion in terms of what is in it for me, or that kind of, will it lead to some kind of profits eventually, or things like. So I think there's the learning, I would say, in the whole process has been that, uh, if there is a kind of a, if your stakeholder mapping is clear, as in that who brings what strength to the table, don't think about what brand or what banner or what, think about the strength areas. And if we can have a roundtable discussion together and there is a common goal for all, there is no reason one should be working in silos. This is not a place, development is not a place where you compete. You rather bring together your strength areas, your resources, and then there's so much to do. And that's something. But it will be extremely important to have discussions, to reach out when needed, when you're feeling alone, where like, how do I have this issue in front of me, how do I resolve it? But go communicate, go talk, get out of the premises that you regularly work in. So those are kinds of things. Another important learning is, there's no harm in having some kind of paperwork in place. Have a left hand side column and have a right hand side column, divide your responsibilities, have some formalities attached to it, and bind it to some kind of a paper where you do make your, you where you do sign up, because that brings in a bit of a professionalism to the whole exercise. And then it helps you put a structure, and that's there comes the management solution to the whole thing. It is also important to be very transparent. I think transparency is a value which must be lived while you are working in any kind of partnerships. The moment the original intent why we are partnering should be put very fairly on table, and the more transparent you are, the more smooth it would be. And accept weaknesses, be open. I mean, be very open to say that, okay, this is where perhaps we need your help. This is where you only can do the thing, we can't. If you're talking to a district magistrate, or you're talking to, a bureaucrat, I'm sure they will then also share with you, this is where you can bring your strength. And that's where the genuine partnerships get formed. And the other bit is, don't treat the beneficiary uh, as, like, just the last. Treat them as program participants. Talk to them, because people who are suffering would also know of the solutions. So the whole ethos of participatory learning appraisals, as we call them, or the participatory program planning, as we call them, it's extremely important to hold those consultations right in the beginning, rather than going later and asking, and then realizing, oh, this is not what I intended to do, and then you have to do the whole thing again. So do that right in the beginning, and have that whole principle of equality, which we want to achieve eventually, be lived even in the program design.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your time, Nidhi. Any final message to all of us and all our viewers and to our institution?
No, I think great talking to all of you here. And I think my colleagues had a little video, because you had a question on how to partner, especially on HCL grant. We received lots of those questions, so we can leave you with that. And it's absolutely amazing to kind of, been interacting with highly enthusiastic panel over here. So maybe Snigdha, if you want to play the impact that is being created by one of our flagship programs called HCL Grant.
Thank you. Thank you for your presence.
मेरा हस्बैंड मिस्त्री काम करते थे और जब लॉकडाउन हो गया ना तो बैठ गए, काम नहीं कर पाए उधर। तो इसमें हम सृजन में आए, 1 रुपये कमा भी रहे हैं और सब्जी उपजा करके खा रहे हैं। تهز لاغنوزم تهز كروباري ماذا باتهزها هشنا مسسكم باتهزا ميزين من بلا أساس شمنا كالصور هزيه تأسس كايبه
Ya ko takchak painga chingna WTI ni manderang. Chinga rijab ko donora chingna namen takchak ni nga tiba walba chingna tepanga ni gemen chinga warang ko bar pungna nanga aro sungni nokni manderang na ba nama aro matbrung na ba nama chinga uni gemen rijab ko de don painga.
These are some of the voices from across the length and breadth of rural India, where HCL Grant, with its NGO partners, are working towards bringing a paradigm shift in the fields of environment, health, and education. HCL Grant is an initiative of HCL Foundation that began its journey in 2015 with a vision to transform rural India.
HCL Grant primarily started with the idea of institutionalizing the whole process of corporate social responsibility. The impact is twofold. One, in the whole process, the way HCL Grant is rolled out. It is a 365 days process where teams work together with the non-government organizations, strengthening them on both aspects, be it programmatic or the governance. The second big impact, of course, is the grant that itself makes. Extremely powerful impact, and which is visible, I would say, the criteria that we've always kept in mind while making the selection and while rolling out HCL Grant.
In its 5-year journey till now, HCL Grant has impacted over 750,000 lives across 8,500 plus villages in 70 districts across 18 states and 2 union territories. In this journey, HCL Grant partner NGOs have also been able to drive policy-level success in few projects.
हाय, मैं तनुश्री, मैं मनीषा। बच्चों के सैपी न्यूज सर्विस में आप सभी का स्वागत है।
When we submitted the proposal to the HCL, and it takes us almost 1 year to get that grant. First organization, the HCL Foundation, where I have to see quite transparency and quite good process.
ये जो अवार्ड हमारे संस्था को मिला है, ये कैटालिटिक रोल प्ले कर रहा है हमारे पहचान को और मजबूत करने के लिए। हम इस एचसीएल ग्रांट से जो मिले हुए सपोर्ट है, इसको हम अन्य जितने भी दाता संस्थाओं के सामने हमने शेयर किया है और उस चीजों को हम जो रख रहे हैं उसका काफी लाभ हमें मिल रहा है, हमें वेटेज भी मिलता है।
HCL Grant's journey began with the vision of building a nation by reaching out to the most unreached and empowering their voices to join the unison of a future-ready India. Today, that vision has metamorphosed into a collective force of our partners, touching hundreds of lives each day. But this is just a beginning. There are many miles to go and many milestones to achieve. HCL Grant, celebrating 5 years of nation building.
Thank you.
Unmute Harsha.
Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you, Dr. Upadhyaya. Thank you, Dr. Hopkins. Thank you, Snigdha, Anshu, everyone present in this room, Joshua, Maninder. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this.
Thank you for having us and wish you the very best. Thank you.